Hmm. So here we sit, day one, or day 40, if you want to be precise, but day one in the countdown of 40 days and 40 nights. And I find it interesting, if you've been following along, approximately 7 days ago, I said that I looked it up and noticed that my 40 days and 40 nights was slightly off from the official 40 days and 40 nights for Venus and Capricorn. So I knew that it was connected, but similar, and I was thinking that's interesting how many days goes off. And here we sit on 2/2/2022. Definitely an auspicious day to most numerologists and astrologers. And we're still in the energy of the full moon in Aquarius. Or, sorry, the new moon in Aquarius, which is a time of sowing seeds, right? Actually, I'm glad I rethought about that because I was thinking, is this a full moon? No, because it wouldn't be in Aquarius because we're in the sun in Aquarius. So if the moon is also in the same sign as the sun, you know it is a new moon, not a full moon. Yay, I'm learning things, right? And so are you. But that's a new moon and a chance to plant seeds of intention and imagination that have to do with the collective and the individual. And I'm thinking about how many different things are coinciding. Like we're coming towards the end of Mercury retrograde, and I know a number of things that were either started or kicked off during this Mercury retrograde that were not very kind to me. And I'm actually kind of happy that they happened in a Mercury retrograde and that I kept my cool for the most part on most things because even I got pulled into some of the shadowy bits on there as a little bit of a test. Not so much to avoid the shadow, but to love myself through my own shadows. And it's funny because I've been thinking about doing this video all day. I was excited. I was like, yay, I did a vlog for 40 days and 40 nights. Not an everyday one, but still, I kept track of it. I did it. I did it pretty consistently and regularly. And it's been fun. Like, I don't even know fully what it's for yet. I know it will kind of reveal itself over time. But I know, like, right now, being the new moon energy and the 2/2/2022 energy, that is definitely significant, as is getting fired in the way that I got fired, which was retaliatory and wrongful termination. So I'm curious what spirit wants me to do with that because I could go either way at this point in time. Like, it wasn't cool. And because of the way they're set up, it would be a little bit difficult to prove with the inappropriate gang like behavior that goes on there. But it certainly would feel better considering the shadows in the former parts of my story. I have friends that I've known still for, like, it's funny, I was looking at it, it was like over 10 years ago when I managed the Jack in the Box and they staged the coup, or they tried to, but Spirit had my back and like nearly nearly 15 people quit like when they saw what happened and that there would be no justice for me and that the people that were doing it and screwing them over were going to nothing was going to happen to them effectively, and they all went to Taco Time. And I just found out apparently that a few of them did some like prank type things before they left, kind of in my name, which I'm kind of like, oh, well, you mean? What can I do other than laugh? I didn't know about it, and I certainly didn't encourage it. It's just kind of a, I suppose, a gift that keeps on giving at this point. I even found out that the location that was there is no longer in business anymore either. They could not pick it up after that. And that was kind of one of those, like, I didn't ask anybody to do anything. In fact, I was unaware that they were going to do such a thing. And so when they did it, it was like I just stayed in my integrity. I just told everybody that I really appreciated working with them. I I put hard effort into earning the trust and loyalty of some people that, I mean, they were stubborn people, but I get it. They were also treated like shit. A couple of them hadn't, they'd been working for like 16 years and never got more than a 10-cent raise. They were all bullied. Half of them only spoke English as like a third partial language and stuff, so they didn't know, or if they did know, they were worried that they couldn't get work elsewhere, so they were, they let themselves be bullied, and I fixed a lot of that. I did my best. The only thing they really would not let me do was give them a lot of raises, but I at least made their schedules better and made it so they didn't have to deal with bullshit from other people because they were good workers. And like, I don't know, like, I'm still really proud of myself for that, and I'm really proud that I have people that still know me and know, like, I'm an efficient worker. I work quickly, I learn quickly, I own my mistakes, I pick things up, I do more than my share. I'm a good worker, and I'm an especially good manager. And like, it's interesting for Venus and Capricorn type stuff, energy to come up, and then Mercury and Aquarius, and then Mercury went back into it, like retrograded back into Capricorn, which was like straight facts thing. And I'm curious because there are a number of things that are going on in my life personally right now that the only reason there's any strife or struggle is because of people lying. Lying, exaggerating, like sometimes outright making things up, other times taking small things and blowing them into huge proportions to try to cover their own butts. And like, I'm curious if Spirit has brought that stuff back into review, because it's going to show me that it's going to fix it. You know what I mean? Like, boy, wouldn't that be nice? Or maybe show me a path to, like, creating work, or finding work, or letting work find me, where there is that emotional stability and healthy boundaries and good management and people who aren't so damn insecure, I swear. Like, I was thinking about it earlier, and it's like this last job that I did, like, I was looking for my own shadows, because first and foremost, especially when getting fired from a job, I do look at myself. Like, that was part of my big gripe with this last one. It was like, I know I have shit to work on. Like, I'm new. Like, I have experience in kitchens, but not in this kitchen, and not with a degree of fresh, hands-on prep that's there. But is that a song too? Hello, Triple Moon Gods. I didn't know it was also a song. I know it always reminds me of Moses. Like, which there's a lot of inside jokes too between me and Midian. But if that's a song, I'll have to check that out. In any case, like, I was thinking about though, and like, I always take a first look. You got thrown under the bus too, yeah. Me too. You know what? Maybe that's what it is. Like, I'm tired of being the one thrown under the bus. And like, I think the hard part for me sometimes is like, I do have that shadow in me that's like, I'm about to get out from up under this bus and turn this bus on top of itself, so you can't throw me under it anymore. Like, I'm about to make it so that there is no under the bus, so that everybody can see what everybody's really doing, which is funny because it ends up being like it's a weird sort of, I don't want to call it a superpower, but it's like a shadow power. And most of my life, I have not used it very much. Yeah, it does. Like, but you know what? See, that's where good people like us tend to get into this thing of like, well, I'm just not going to be nice anymore. Kind people will get run over. Nice guys finish last. No, that's not fucking true. That's what everybody else wants us to believe. You get that, if your heart's too big, or if you're too good, or this and this and that, like. And I really like this last place that I worked. I was thinking about it, and it's a lot like, it reminded me a lot of my family and my DM's family of pirates. Like, a lot of passive aggressive stuff, a lot of like almost intentional confusion, but you could tell that it's subconscious. It's like codependent, enabling, and lack of self-esteem. And then like someone like me, like I am certainly not perfect. In fact, I'm glad I'm not perfect, because you know how much crap I already get from people who feel intimidated by my work ethic as it is. Like, and that's without it being perfect. And like, I'm glad that I am full human on it, though I think the shadow side that we kind people especially get caught into, and people with big hearts, is that whole thing of like, one, not wanting to look at and own that, like, we have our shadow sides, and not just that, but loving our shadow sides too. And that's where I kind of got to the title of this video. I almost said Enter the Dragon, because I also like, I I know I'm not the only one that's getting the feeling that my DM is like that, as Maverick said, the bear that is now awake and like it's time to hunt for food, and then I am coming to you, divine feminine, right? It's something like that. Um, but then I was like, but it's like it is kind of more of a dragon than a bear, but it's also not a dragon, it's more of a horse. And there's specific reasons for that. But but there's been a ton of syncs also with wolves, coyotes, and tigers. And I know that I just found out, which this is another one that lines up with my 40 days and 40 nights because it was yesterday, is that we just started the new Chinese New Year, which is Year of the Tiger. I'm hoping, I don't know if you know Triple Moon Goddess, but if somebody knows the element um, of the tiger for this year, that would be cool. Otherwise, I need to look it up. Well, what's funny too is my 10-year-old Joey, who's with my DM, his dad, which is he's the dad of both my boys. That he just told me that he learned that he was born in the year of the rabbit. And it's interesting because I've never, like, he and I talk magic and all sorts of stuff all the time, but I've never really spent a lot of time with him on the Chinese astrology. And I thought it was great that he showed it to me, and he didn't know that I already knew about it, but he knew that I might know about it because mom knows about all sorts of magical, mystical things. Um, he also started telling me about the pirates over there, which was interesting, and referring to them as pirates too. So I was like, I knew my little Joey was a smart boy. Anyways, but what I was thinking though is it's more of Eye of the Tiger sort of thing, because there's been a lot of synchronicities with storms and the word surge, which is a newer one to come in for me, at least in terms of like synchronicity words. Like storms come in, shadow storms, things like that. But there's also a surge, and what it makes me think about is like a power surge, and that fits because we have Pluto, Neptune, and Jupiter dynamics going on in the sky right now that are really highlighting things, and we have like a ton of Capricorn energy going on, including Mars in Capricorn. And like I said earlier, Mercury retrograded back from Aquarius into Capricorn. So when it goes direct, it will be Mercury in Capricorn. So it's like we started out the beginning of this year with like extra Capricorn energy. And as a Capricorn myself, I really love that. I'm not really fully sure what it all means, but I really love that. I'm like going, it feels like that song, "It's My Time to Shine," and like I don't even know fully how. In fact, I kind of like when the job thing happened, like it blindsided me so much that I was like, what? What? But I mean, what is it? The game of Survivor, right? Blind sides are part of the game, right? Like, and it feels like a lot of that because Capricorn rules the 10th house, and 10th house is office and government, and it definitely has to do with power exchange. Scorpio's house is more to do with power in the form of like possessing it, taking it, giving it, things like that. But Capricorn and 10th house stuff is more of like power exchange, and it's like you can in the shadow side have power taken. I was just talking with a friend the other day about like why do people, like, especially if I end up in a job where I have a female boss, and typically they're more in toxic masculine energy, so they're not usually sitting with their feminine energy very well, but they usually get intimidated of me in some way or another. And I was like, but I'm such a mouse, like I really am. I know I have big energy, I know I'm like all over the place, and I know that I try to hold myself to better standards than most people, and I know that like when I like say when it comes to breaks, I know what my legal rights are, and you're not going to dick me out of that kind of shit, and I will say that to people. And like, but typically I'm very like, yes ma'am, yes sir, can I do more, can I do this again, can I do, you know what I mean? Like I appreciate respect, I appreciate hierarchy, I appreciate things like that. And I don't, it's funny because even right now I feel myself stopping in the way that I stopped when I was talking to her. Is like, I don't go in to take people's jobs, but it's not that these feminines are wrong to worry that I could, because there have been times when I have, but it has always been after they decide that to pick me to throw under the bus. And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. And because I typically do have a good work ethic and a good reputation and a good standing in the community and shit like that, I can prove that I did what I did and did not do what I did not do, and things like that. And it can end up taking somebody's job and or usurping and putting me in there. And it's funny because I try to avoid that because one, it doesn't, like, I would rather help lift somebody else up who's above me and help them like raise up or things like that, or at least help them feel like they're, like they have help in their job than to be the person that takes a job. But if you make me a target and or you affect my reputation and things like that, that's when I get to my shadowy side. And it's like that big energy that they were worried about, that they were intimidated by, can be there. But it's never, it's funny, I always have people, somebody said it's because I'm so masculine, like I'm very androgynous both in my energy and in my physical presentation, and that like that masculine energy scares them. And I'm like, the funny thing is like, as much as I've always had that energy, I have never violated anybody, like never. I've never gone and started a fight or like picked a fight, at least not physically. I did recently with the Pirates pick an intellectual battle of wits, but that was also the first time in my life. I was telling my therapist, I was like 36 years old, and for the first time ever, I started some drama. You know what I mean? Actually 35, because it was just before my birthday, and I was like, I I feel like a new person, you know what I mean? It's not that I'm going to start doing that stuff more, but just that I let myself do it, that I let myself get into my shadow of my own self and do that. And the funny thing is, even in getting in the shadow and even in like starting some drama, it was also one of those, like, it was in standing up for myself, in healing, in standing up for my kids and my DM, and getting myself out of dynamics that I had allowed to go on because I didn't want to rock the boat. And I was letting myself get thrown under the bus like over and over and over again. So like, yeah, oh, it's water tiger. You're nice. See? And it lines up with your DM. But no, like, that's so funny. Water tiger. And my DM's a Cancer too, so I can see that. Anyways, it's one of those, like, I'm looking at my shadows and I'm seeing like, oh, what is it? That's the thing that Maverick's been saying lately. It's like, even when I'm dirty, I'm clean, which also relates to a song that my DM wrote about me. It's really funny. But I'm thinking about that stuff, like Venus and Capricorn energy, especially for the 40 days and 40 nights. And like it brought me to a place where I was thinking about like, wow, I kind of treated this job like I used to treat relationships. And it's funny because my DM was the only one that I did not, like, I've never been quite like everyone else when it comes to relationships. Who am I kidding? I've never been like everyone else on anything. But, like, I feel like even when I was younger, because like I met my DM when I was 15, and no, we didn't just like stay in relationship from there. Like, but I was already I would say hyper realistic about the way the world worked. So I did not want to get into like typical relationships, and like I wanted to enjoy the emotional aspect and the physical aspect without what typically seemed to me at the time to become like chaos and fighting and things like that, and ultimately lead to disillusion when you try to make commitments in there and stuff. And like, so I avoided that, you know what I mean? And but then later on, especially after I met my DM and like my heart and my spirit were just like torn up, I did try other relationships, and especially like early on, like early separations. And we've been doing this thing for 20 years. So for those of you that are a few years into your twin flame dynamics and experiencing separation, I love you. And it does fucking suck at that stage. It will get better. It doesn't mean you're going to be outside of, but you know what? Triple Moon guys, I've been wanting moderators. I just haven't thought about doing it yet because I haven't had any times where I've had like a bunch of people on, and like, yeah, I do get an occasional person on there that'll spam and do something like that, but anyways, stick around because Spirit has been telling me that my channel might be getting more popular, and I would love to have you as my first moderator. We can already say you are now. I'm not gonna mess with the things until later. In any case, So I was thinking about it though, and it's like when I look at this job, and even when I look at like some of the places that my son and I have stayed, because I've not avoided relationships since my DM and I separated, but I wanted to work more on me, and I also recognize that, like, as long as I have feelings in my heart for my DM, I'm not the kind of person that can just go cover that up with another relationship. I did try, partly for his sake, because me being single apparently makes his pirates very insecure and all that shit, and me having, like, being honest about my feelings, even though, again, being a mouse, like, intentionally being a mouse, like, I want him to learn what he needs to learn. I want him to want to do things the way that he wants to do them. I'm not that type of person that it's like, you have to do what I want you to do. And besides, life's more interesting when he does what he wants to do. Where I get pissy is when he goes and lets other people control him and he does what they want him to do. And it's like, well, if you were gonna let somebody control you like that, you should have fucking let me do it. But even at that level, I wouldn't have been happy because I want you to be you, not some puppet on a string. Um, a little more of my shadowy side, right? Like, anyways, I thought about like the first apartment that we jumped into, and this job, and several other things, and I am intentionally childlike, and I know that I come across to a fair amount of people as naive for that reason, but I practice believing the best about things. Not but, like, and I practice believing the best about things. I do it intentionally. And when I get into things, typically I start out with a positive attitude about it. This is a good place. We can work this out. I love this and this and this and this and this. And this is great. And when something negative comes towards me, I typically alchemize it into something positive. Like, I did not necessarily want to be doing dishes for most of my time in the kitchen, especially when I was told that everybody does dishes. But I did not mind doing dishes. I found a place of gratitude in my heart for doing dishes because, you know what? Dishes are easy. I even actually got out the soap because nobody was actually washing the dishes. They were just spraying them off and throwing them through the sanitizer, right? So I actually did that stuff. And I created a streamlined system so that I could do it when it was busy. And I could do that stuff between prep, and I made sure I knew where everything was. But did I really want to be doing dishes with most of my time when I wanted to be learning better prep and learning more stuff on the line? No, I did not want to be doing dishes. But I did want to feel good no matter what I did at my job, right? So I found that place within myself that I felt good about it, right? And when shitty things happened or other people were working, I was like, you know what? Maybe that person's just having a bad day. Right? I don't assume from the get-go that someone is lazy or subversive or anything like that, or bad management or anything. I don't start out assuming that stuff. And when I meet a new person, I don't start out looking for things to distrust about them. For one, I've been that person before. That's how I was conditioned growing up. But I don't want to be that person, and I've trained myself out of it. I've trained my ego to look for the bright side, the rainbow, to look for the positives and stuff like that. And I've noticed it does tend to create these sort of situations where people who are following my story are always like, well, it's funny, they're always surprised when something like negative happens, or when I say, nope, this isn't a good situation and we're getting out of here. And most of the time I'm just as surprised, but I'm also not. Like, I have some very strong 8th house and Scorpio placements, and also some Pisces placements. I'm well aware when things are going shitty. I just don't want to be remanifesting the story. And I'm an internal optimist too. Like, when something is going shitty, I don't sit there and go, oh my gosh, I need to quit, or I need to get rid of this person, or I need to do that thing. I'm a Capricorn. I look at the social architecture and I'm like, okay, where can I find my place in this? How can I help other people do their things? Awesome, Pisces. I have Pisces moon. Like, how can I help things fit in there? And having a Pisces moon too, I'm typically very attuned to the emotions of other people, so I can do those sorts of things. And in the past, like, in looking at my shadows, especially work history wise, like, I had a talk with a friend that I used to volunteer with a lot, and we were both mechanics, and we talked about different mechanic work, and we talked about this thing called rage quitting, which is typically a gamer term. Like, say somebody else is frustrating you so fucking bad that you just, like, rage quit. You're like, ah, you throw the remote across the room and shit like that. And I have been that person in the past to rage quit. And it's funny because with that friend, what I said to them is, I will typically take a lot on me. Like, I can take a lot. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I used to think it was a good thing. Like, I can take it. I'll eat a bowl of nails for fucking breakfast, like, but it's not. It's not necessarily. Like, it's good to have strength. It's good to have will. It is good to be able to carry great loads, but not on a regular basis. It is not a sign of strength that you can pile on and like codependently do everything for everyone. I've learned that lesson. And but still though, like when in getting fired from this job, in especially the really weird fucking ways that it happened, that I'm like, wow, okay, so even not just did I end up in a situation that I have been like in the side of me that's been avoiding like romantic relationships, like that's the kind of shit I didn't want to deal with. I didn't want to deal with a family of crazy people. I didn't want to deal with a bunch of people who are hypocrites. I didn't want to deal with being thrown under the bus for bullshit that other people do, and I certainly didn't want to be the only one being held accountable for my shit when no one else is. You know what I mean? Like, didn't want to do it. And I've not avoided working at all ever in my life. I'm a Capricorn. I'm always fucking working. That was one of my DM's biggest complaints. I was always working. Even like writing into the middle of the night, clickety clickety click. He used to say, like, it's funny. He used to say it annoyed him, and then he said it helped him fall asleep. So, but it's one of those, like, I'm looking at it going, I appreciate this review, because that's what retrogrades typically are in any planet. It's a review of something. And so now I'm looking at it 40 days and 40 nights and looking at what I learned there. And I also realized that I think I manifest the dynamics that I had with my adoptive mother in my jobs, especially because it's typically what gets me the most, that gets my buttons, is having a boss who is incompetent and passive aggressive. And it's happened a fair amount of times. And that used to piss me off with my mom too, especially because in being passive aggressive, typically they expect you to excel at things that they suck balls at. And they want to shame you about that stuff that that they feel that you are not good at, and it's typically a projection. And when you try to get them to see that, then you are definitely public enemy number one at that point in time too, even if it could help them and they could feel really fucking happy if they listen, right? Even if they see it themselves, even if they're the ones that tell you about it all day long, they still don't want to work on it, so they don't want to talk about it. And so if it starts affecting your shit and you stand up for yourself, guess where it goes, right? But I was thinking about that going, okay, because I got very gun shy in terms of 9-to-5 jobs especially after the Jack in the Box thing, and the when I worked for Xbox, because like I really excelled at Xbox testing too, and I did language testing and I loved it. And it was because I had every year I had a week that I went to Oregon for a spiritual gathering that we did, and I told them when I got hired that I had that was the only thing all year that I would definitely not be at work, and there was no negotiation on it. I was very clear about that, and they said that that was fine. And then that time of year came around, and I was volunteering for extra work. I was doing the work of a lead without even getting paid for it, without getting promoted, while watching every woman with a nice bosom and every dude of any kind getting promoted above me, even though I was working the extra hours and I was on time and I was doing the work that was expected of me. And then when it came time for that week, they had some extra work come up, and I was like, I told you this is that 1 week that I will not be here, and I reminded you last month, and I reminded you 3 weeks ago, and I reminded you 2 weeks ago. And then they suddenly started they stopped scheduling me. Like, that hurt. And the Jack in the Box one hurt. I still have a car sitting at my parents' house that is a whole nother source of fucking drama that I bought to get out of a fight with my DM so that I had stable transportation to and from my work, because I was there like 70 to 80 hours a week, and certainly not being paid for that amount because they put me on salary. And it is still wrapped up in tolls because they started the 520 tolls in Bellevue, and because of the way that things worked out with that job and stuff like that, that was the first and only car I had ever bought as a used car, and I can't drive it, and I can't sell it, and I can't do anything with it, and they won't put the tolls in collections, and all of that is because I was trying my best to make the best of a crappy situation, and I did so fucking good. Actually, I improved so much stuff between all that stuff. Like I said, I still have people that I talk to regularly who either I hired there or at one of those places, or I helped get the job, or I helped work through job anxiety and things like that, that know me and know I am a good worker, I am a good manager, I'm a good coworker. Like, I'm good at what I do. Work is my thing. Work is one of my jams, you know what I mean? But I'm thinking about it too, though, going, there is sort of that interesting honeymoon thing that happens, and I'm thinking about the shadows of it and the review of it, and it's like, okay, at a fair amount of these jobs and even living situations, we tend to manifest various versions, I'm noticing, of my adoptive mother. And it's definitely stuff that, like, when we left, I was very, very relieved that I was feeling like I would not have to deal with that anymore. In fact, some of my DMs were shadows or things that remind me of my adoptive mother. And she's not all bad. I just there are definitely places where we rubbed against each other in ways that I recognize for me were my karmic, my karmic cycles and stuff like that. And even he pointed it out in some ways. And I did notice that stuff when I was working on, like, doing my inner work over the last couple of years during a longer separation with my DM and stuff, and I was like thinking, this is interesting to review that this energy is here even in my work. And I actually, once I saw it, I know why. And a lot of it's just conditioning, like, it's just old momentum stuff that's still moving out. And I realized it was a similar thing that I told my son in terms of our living situations, is like, we might not we might not get right into the living situation that we want. We might stay with a few new people, we might try out a few new things, we might get creative. However, what I do know from the patterns I've seen and from what my spirit team is telling me is that each person that we interact with in terms of living situations and the situations we're going to be in will be of a higher vibration, higher quality, little by little by little. And it doesn't necessarily have to be all little, but sometimes it can feel that way. And even he's noticed it here and there. And it's like, like right now we actually are sort of staying in a trailer with a new person that I met locally, and like we don't know them, so we don't know what kind of situation it's going to be exactly, but so far it is a higher quality and higher vibration level than the other places that we have stayed. And like the last one before her, similar. And and even before that, even though that was a crazy tale, it was still better than the one before it, right? So like things have been slowly getting better and going in that general direction. And I realized that, like, my shadow in the past was definitely something that I was passed on from my my adopted mother, which is like assuming the worst. Like, if something goes bad, assuming that it's, like, on one hand telling everyone, oh no, it'll be great, it'll all be wonderful, and then on the other side, like, being like, no, it's all horrible and it's never going to get better, and holding grudges and like things like that, and definitely retaliation sort of things like that. And then there's the other side of me, also gained from her, which is like thinking about retaliating, recognizing when things were not appropriately done to me, and then doing nothing. Like, just letting it happen. And especially in terms of work, like, one of the things that really threw me off of working in general when I was growing up in terms of like 9 to 5 type jobs was watching her and my dad and my aunts like work jobs where they would come home crying. And like, and they worked at banks too, so they got robbed at gunpoint a whole bunch of times, like a whole bunch of stuff. And I never really understood that. Like, why would you continue to work a job that you hate? And it was always, oh, well, you have to. You just have to. And it's like, as an adult, I've definitely learned, no, you don't. And in fact, you put yourself in a shit position, and you end up being a shit parent when you put yourself in the position of doing things only because you feel that you have to. like that you have no choice. And when you tell yourself you have no choice, you put yourself in a position where you feel like you have no choice, and then you put everyone else in positions where they have no choice, especially children. That's not true, and it's not fair, and it's not right on there. Um, but I noticed that there is definitely the parallels and connections. And Venus in Capricorn, like, we have Mars in Capricorn right now, so which totally makes sense in terms of work stuff, and it's actually exalted. I didn't know that, but it's interesting that it is exalted in that sign. But to have Venus in Capricorn too, so we've got basically the divine masculine, divine feminine, both in Capricorn, and Venus is usually, it's ruler of the seventh house, which is intimacy. It's like it takes multiple houses together to equal relationships altogether. Venus rules over the seventh house and the second house. Second house is actually of materialism and things like that. That's Taurus's house, but its primary is Libra, and that's seventh house, which is intimacy. But I actually put it in the bathroom because Scorpio gets the bedroom, that lusty, physical, carnal, like, connection there, which is intimacy. But I'm talking about the kind of intimacy where you know somebody almost better than they know themselves, and they know you almost better than you know yourself. That sort of rapport, that ability to almost speak to each other without speaking to each other, sort of thing. And to have that such a strong relationship indicator, and it's actually often signified. Venus and Capricorn energy, whether in your natal chart or as a transit, is typically, it's related to swan totem and swan energy, and also penguins. And it's like, swans in particular typically choose a lifelong mate, and if that mate dies or anything like that, they typically do not choose a new one and stuff like that. Eagles are sometimes similar and things like that. It's that kind of energy. And I do know that there, as a part of this 40 days and 40 nights, was a part of the well filling back up energy. If you go back and watch some videos that I did, I would say last month, I think. I'm gonna have to get off of here because my phone is about to turn itself off. But yeah, no, this energy is definitely, it's bringing me back to review of like how things mix together, because we often don't see how things can come together, but we can see how right now we've got 10th house and 7th house energy interacting with each other. So relationships and work. And that can be whether it's business or career or things like that. But there's definitely a parallel with kind of an L shape going on. Like if you were looking at a clock, it would kind of make a quarter, a quarter of the 360, which is a thing that I talked about like last year a bunch, and I think is going to come back in. I've been seeing a lot more 360 energy. But what I'm feeling like it is, with things coming out of retrograde and going direct in this Capricorn energy, it feels like a lot of that stuff is going to get corrected in definitely benevolent ways, and ways that help to kind of release that, like, old energy where we may have shadows, where we're not looking at where we're doing things, where our BS is. Like, even at this last job and other jobs, like, yeah, if I have been treating them like relationships, and like coming in and like being quieter, like letting things slide so that I can, have time there and fit in and do things like that, rather than just saying something right away, it's not any healthier at a job than it is elsewhere. And I would rather, at this point, I would rather get fired within a few days because I was upholding the rules and not letting shit slide, than I would get fired again because somebody else threw me under the bus because I didn't say anything, so that I could try to be that positive force of change. Like, that's a codependent way to approach jobs, just like it is with the thing. It's funny, getting this other spammer like Triple Moon Goddess, maybe you're right, that we're going to need moderators soon. That would be fun. You know what? Maybe that's part of what Spirit wanted me to come on and say on here. I don't know. I went to a river earlier and asked it to help me move some energy. And when I looked across the riverbank, there was 2 white flags. And a weird third white object that kind of looked like an ibis, but I'm pretty sure we don't have ibis in this part of Washington. I think it was just a bag, but the 2 white flags stuck out to me, and it's kind of like, it reminded me of, the little flag that Wile E. Coyote will wave when roadrunners like beguiled him enough times. Like, it reminded me of that. And it's like I know that in order, if anybody else is surrendering or surrendering to me or anything like that, I know that that still means that there is some sort of surrender that is either, well, I mean, it either already has happened or is happening or will happen on my end too. So I'm looking at what am I surrendering to? Or what have I already surrendered to? Is there something that I surrendered to that I should not surrender to? Is there things that I should surrender to? Is there, like, is someone else surrendering to me and I just surrender to that? But it feels like it's definitely the, seventh house relationship intimacy. Well, actually, it'd be this way. And then the 10th house, the work, the social architecture, and the things like that that deal with Capricorn. So I don't know if you're feeling any of the similar stuff. Maybe look into it. I don't know exactly what these 40 days and 40 nights vlogs do for y'all, but I know that you get what you need out of them. So I'm going to go ahead and get off here and let my phone recharge. I might get back on later. I might just get on tomorrow. We will see. But either way, thank you for following this 40 days and 40 nights blog. This is definitely the last one in terms of logging of the days of it. I might come on in like a week or so if I get more insights about what it meant and like anything like that. But for right now, Eye of the Tiger seems to be the big thing. It's partly like Eye of the Storm, and then Eye of the Tiger, the song, and then Tiger, this is the year of the water tiger kind of thing. So think about those themes if you're on a similar wavelength or sine wave as myself. And I'll see you in whatever series I do next.